All right, hello again, friends. Welcome to your yoga class. My name is Jenny, and this is a restore practice. So this is gonna be really, really nice. Restore is one of my favorite styles of yoga because it gives us an opportunity to really slow things down and to really take stock. You know, we travel through life so just go, do. And sometimes we forget to slow down, we forget to check in, we forget to, not get so caught up. And tomorrow we've got the fall equinox coming up. And basically what that is that just the day and night are equal. So, in the solstices, it's in the summer solstice, we've got the longest day of the year. The winter solstice is the longest night of the year. And in the spring and fall equinoxes, the days are equal. The daytime is equal as the nighttime. So it's a great time to kind of look at what you need to bring your life back into balance. And that takes some observation. That takes some, just some time to see what's going on. And a good way to do that is to see where you're investing your energy. What are you feeding into on a daily? What percentage of your day is spent focusing on the material world? Things to keep us grounded here, food, shelter, clothing and bathing ourselves, those sort of things, as well as staying up to date with what is going on in this reality. But then counteracting that with a balance of self-care, of tending to the mind, tending to the body, tending to the soul, to the spirit, making sure that you are doing things that are in line with what you are wanting and in line with the world that you are wanting to create for yourself. So kind of playing with this idea of duality and working with balance. It's kind of what we're gonna get into a little bit today. So let's get started. Well, first of all, we're gonna want some props. So a few common props that you're gonna want: a block or two of some sort. You can also use books, or I have a rolled up and taped up mat. It's just an old yoga mat folded in thirds, rolled up and taped. Both of those can be used just to bring the ground closer, or to give yourself a little lift, a little cushion sometimes. Blankets are also a really good option, maybe a few different sizes. You can roll them up, use them as a cushion, use them as a pillow. You can use them to pad the knees, to lift the booty, all sorts of fun stuff. And then also some sort of larger cushion or a bolster. This is my all-time favorite prop. You can also use, like I said, couch cushions, a bunch of pillows. You can use a rolled up blanket. So take some time to gather whatever props you'd like. We do hold these poses a little bit longer, so sometimes it's nice to have the props there just to support the body so that we can release our skeletal structure and start to get into the muscular structure and kind of stretch and release and all that good stuff. So gather your props, and then we will start in a comfortable reclined position. So take your time to set that up. You're welcome to just come flat on the back, or you can use some props to support you. You're welcome to slide your cushion or pillows, blankets, anything like that underneath the knees. If you want to lie back onto a cushion, or really any way you want to support yourself. But just slowly start to make your way to the ground. Start to get any wiggles out. Allowing yourself to physically settle in. And that may take a little bit of time to start to land. When you get into your reclined position, just take a deep breath in and let it go. Do that again. Take a nice deep breath in and just release it out. One more, just take a nice deep breath in, deepest breath you've taken all day, fill all the way up, hold at the top, and then release all the way down to empty. Just letting go of the day, letting the body release down towards the ground. And start to check in with the body, start to notice how you're feeling, where you're feeling it. We definitely want to hold space for any injuries that we're carrying with us. We want to check in for any aches or pains, any tension or tenderness, anything that we may need to work through or be aware of through our physical practice. Checking in energetically, checking in emotionally, just really seeing what's going on inside. And starting to just pay attention to the breath. Noticing any effects that it has on the mind, on the body. Starting to notice the quality, the depth, the temperature, the texture. And you can connect to the breath by simply observing it. Just watching it in its natural state, allowing the body to dictate its flow. You can take that connection to your breath a step further by intentionally breathing, taking intentional deep breaths. Inhaling, expanding the belly, allowing the lungs to fill up completely. And exhale, allowing that belly to drop down, pressing all the air out, and really working to use the full capacity of your lungs with each breath. If you want to add one more layer to your connection to your breath, you could activate Ujjayi breathing, which is done by activating those muscles in the back of the throat that you use when you're fogging up a window or a mirror. So kind of that kind of sound. And as you breathe in and out of the nose, it creates this beautiful oceanic sound, giving the breath an audible quality, giving the mind something to tune into, as well as physically starting to bring some calm and ease into the body by triggering our parasympathetic nervous system. So different ways to connect to the breath through simple observation, deep belly breathing, and or Ujjayi breath. And as you continue to connect to the breath, as you continue to check in with the body, just keep gathering that information. Just be the observer. Don't attach any emotion or any judgment to anything in the body or anything that comes up in the mind. Just make note, acknowledge it, witness it, and then just let it go. As we think about bringing balance into our lives, it's usually one or two things, or one of two things, that kind of throw us out of balance. And that's either holding on to something that no longer serves us, holding on to old thoughts, old beliefs, old patterns, old systems, holding on out of fear of change, out of fear of letting go, out of fear of the unknown, or on the opposite side of being afraid to call in what we're needing, to ask what we want, or to set ourselves up with our intentions, our thoughts, and our actions to cultivate what we want to bring into our lives. So again, typically an imbalance comes from either holding on or from not being able to call in. So take a moment here to just maybe reflect on that. As we move through this transitional period from summer to fall, from more active energy towards a more dormant energy. What is there in your life, in your daily life, that you either want or need to cultivate more of, that you need to call into your life, or that you need to let go of in order to create space for something new? Awesome work. Just a few more rounds of breath here on the back. Starting the way we'll end in good old Shavasana. And as you feel ready, just start to reach the arms overhead, stretch out through the legs, and then just start to move here, maybe reaching up through the fingertips, reaching out through the toes. You could roll out through the wrists and ankles, spread out through the toes, wiggle through the fingers. Just take a nice big good morning stretch. Go ahead and remove any props that you may have been using to support you. Just push those off to the side. And then nice and slow, we'll start to draw the knees in towards the chest. You can start by bending the knees and planting the feet, maybe lifting and tucking through the tailbone, and then bringing the knees in towards the chest. You can grab onto the tops or outsides of the knees. You can also wrap the arms around and hug in. And it might feel really good to bring a little gentle rocking side to side, a little movement through the hips. You could also, grabbing onto the tops of the knees, circle the knees around, which allows the low back to kind of press into and trace around the sacrum, and maybe giving you a little back massage, a little release for the low back. And then as you start to feel ready, we're going to set up a bridge pose. And we are going to want this to be a supported bridge. So you're going to want some sort of prop nearby. So we're going to be planting the feet and lifting the hips. You want the hips high enough just to be above the heart. So grab anything, maybe a stack of pillows, a block, your bolster, a cushion, anything that'll bring in a nice lift in the hips. But to set this up, with the feet planted, we'll walk the heels in towards the glutes. Press down into the feet. Lift through the toes, spread them out, and then set the toes back down. So you have this nice solid connection down towards the feet. And then pressing into the feet, pressing into the shoulders, we'll slowly just start to tilt the pelvis up and lift the hips up towards the sky. And then on an exhale, we're just going to release this down. So one vertebrae at a time, nice and slow. We'll take a few rounds of this moving bridge before we settle in. So nice and slow on the inhale, starting to tilt the pelvis up, lifting the tailbone, the hips, the low back, mid back, to the upper back, and then exhale slowly, one vertebrae at a time. Setting the hips back down. Awesome work. Just a few more like this. Inhaling to lift the hips, articulating through each vertebra. And exhale, slowly rolling back down. Now, if this moving bridge is feeling fantastic, feel free to stick with this. And then whenever you're ready, with the hips lifted, we'll start to come in towards our supported bridge. So sliding whatever prop you'd like underneath the hips, and then allowing the hips to settle down onto the prop.
So we want to have this lift in the hips, a little opening in the hip flexors. We are working with a little bit of back bending here, so you can kind of play with that too. Obviously, the higher the hips, the more back bending there's going to be. If you do have some pain or compression in the low back, one thing that you can do is activate a little bit more through the mid back. So bring kind of more of a lift in the chest, tucking the shoulder blades underneath. And then the chest is lifting towards the chin, chin lifting up towards the ceiling. So the neck is nice and extended, and we've got a little opening in the throat. We're not tucking the chin down towards the chest, and we're not trying to look back behind us. It's just a nice neutral neck. Find your breath here. You can actually see the rise and fall of the belly here. So maybe that's your connection, your anchor. And again, as we hold here, just coming back to that reflection, moving forward in our transition period. What is it that you would like to either call into your life to help through this transition, to set you up for future success, to help you navigate the unknowns? Or what is it that you want to let go of? Something that you want to leave in the past season, something that you want to set down and walk away from in order to find your right path, in order to create room for more inspiration, for more creation. What can you do to bring more balance into your daily life? We'll be here for several more rounds of breath, so I want to give you a few other options that you can explore if you'd like. If this back bend and hip flexor stretch is feeling good, but you maybe want to take it a little bit further, you could start to play with extending one leg out at a time. Maybe just starting with the right leg, getting a little more opening in that hip flexor, a little more activation in that back bend. You can stick with that, switching out legs as it feels good, extending that left leg out, just kind of testing the waters a little bit, seeing how that feels, checking in with the body, listening when the body says, hey yo, it might be going a little too far. Maybe it feels best to keep the feet planted. Maybe you like that alternating, extending one leg out at a time. Maybe extending both legs at the same time is going to feel good for you. Knowing that that is going to increase the sensation. It's going to bring more activation in the hip flexors and the low back, so stay in tune. Check in with the body. Don't force anything. Don't feel like you have to make any certain shape. This is just finding what feels good in this moment. And if you feel like you've worked your back bend enough, I just want to kind of enjoy a little more of the inversion of this, not only getting the hips above the heart, but maybe even taking the legs above the heart. So if you'd like, one thing you could do is start to lift through the feet, starting to draw the knees a little bit towards the chest. You could stay here or even extend the legs up towards the sky, coming into a supported shoulder stance. And here you could bring in some subtle movement, maybe spreading out through the toes, pointing and flexing, or rolling out through the ankles. You could also explore with larger movements through the legs, opening them up or scissoring them, maybe slowly, gently taking the toes overhead towards more of a plow pose. So we'll take about another minute here with the hips raised on the prop, and then whatever exploration you'd like to take with the legs, whether that's extending up, exploring more of the inversion with the legs raising above the heart, or whether that's with knees bent, feet planted on the floor, working little back bending and hip flexor stretch, or playing with extending one or both legs out to go a little further into that back bending and hip flexor stretch. Find what feels good for you here. Listen to the body. Knowing that bigger is not better, that deeper is not better. It can be if that is what your body is needing. But we don't want to bring in these ideas of what we think yoga should be, what we think this pose should look like, and we disregard how the pose feels in our body. Instead, we try to force the body into the yoga pose, when really, the yoga pose is simply an invitation for the body. An invitation to set it up in a certain way and observe. See what comes up, see what happens, see what feelings arise, see what happens in the body. It's all an exploration. Excellent work. Just starting to wrap up our little lifted hip sequence in the next 2 or 3 breaths. And as you begin to feel ready to come out, we'll plant the feet nice and solid and press into all 4 corners of the feet. Lift up through the toes, press down, and then lower the toes back down. So you have that solid connection to the feet. Use that connection to press down through the feet to lift the hips up, just high enough to slide that prop out from underneath. And then just as we did in our moving bridge, nice and slow, 1 vertebrae at a time, articulate the spine down towards the ground. Nice and slow, mid-back, low back, tailbone, all the way down. And then just walk the feet out wide, take the feet wider than hip distance, and let the knees drop side to side, finding some windshield wiper movements here. Find the breath. And as you feel ready, we'll just rock the knees over to one side, gently rolling onto the side, and then pressing ourselves up and flipping over onto hands and knees. So coming into a tabletop, I heard this called a quadruped the other day. I thought that was interesting. Never heard that one before, but I guess it makes sense. Quad limbs on the ground, I don't know. But anyways, so we're coming to tabletop,
Take your time to really find that solid connection to the hands. Lengthen through the tailbone, lengthen out through the crown of the head. Belly draws slightly in so we have some support there. And then we're just going to circle through the torso. So we'll start by shifting the ribs over towards the right. And then we'll drop the belly down as we come through center, coming through a cow pose. Shifting the ribs over towards the left as they raise up. And then we'll start to kind of circle around, coming towards center, rounding out in a cat pose, and then sending the ribs back over towards the right and repeating. So you can bend the elbows if you'd like. You can kind of drop the chest down as you circle down and around, and then really press the ground away as you round out in the spine. Taking it nice and slow. And then as you feel ready, reversing the direction of those circles. So shifting the ribs to the left, lowering the belly down through center, through a cow pose. Ribs shift over towards the right as they start to raise up. Ribs come towards center as we round out. And then repeat, shifting the ribs to the left. And when you feel complete in your torso circles on each side, then just start to bring in any other movements that would feel good here. Just kind of some freestyle movements. Maybe you just work through traditional cat-cow, smiling and arching through the spine. Maybe you want to shift the hips forward and back, maybe towards child's pose, and kind of a gentle upward dog, high cobra. You could take circles or figure eights through the hips. Just anything that would feel good to kind of bring some movement into the low back, finding a little release from our back bending that we just did. And now that we have kind of neutralized through the spine, then we can counter that back bending with some forward folding. So we're going to come into a child's pose. And there's lots of different ways that you can set this up. You could have the knees underneath the hips, and as you send the hips back, the chest lowers down towards the ground, arms reach forward, and the head lowers down. Now it's okay if the head doesn't touch. You could fill in that space with a block or a blanket of some sort if you want to release the head. You could also bring in, you're welcome to lie down on your bolster, on a cushion or rolled up blanket, so you can put it in between the legs so that the torso has a place to rest. You can slide it all the way back through the hips so that the hips are supported, and then maybe bringing in something for the head. And if it doesn't feel awesome to have the knees this super bent, you can leave the hips raised, walking the hands forward, lowering the chest down into a puppy pose. That gets a little more into the shoulders, a little more into the back. Or you could also take a blanket, roll it up, and place it across the calves so that as you send the hips back, you've got a little cushion there so that you're not having to bend the knees quite as deep and you have a little support there. So, taking your time to set up your child's pose. Arms can stay extended overhead. You could release through the shoulders by turning the palms up and letting the shoulders roll out. You could also bring the hands back towards the feet, allowing the shoulders to roll forward, getting a nice release there. And now allow yourself to breathe into the back side of the belly or back side of the body. Maybe
reflecting back as we were in our bridge pose, as we could see the rise and fall of the belly, maybe trying to mimic that in the back. Maybe trying to let the back of the lungs expand and rise. Feeling this rounding forward of the spine, release through the head, neck, and shoulders. And now if you are working with releasing anything, this grounding pose is a really good one to bring some intention and some focus in that area. So we can breathe and release whatever it is that no longer serves us, release that energy that is holding us back. We can release it to the ground. We can send our waste, our excess, the unwanted back into the earth. And just as nature knows what to do with rubbish, the earth also knows what to do with expelled energy. It transmutes it, it transforms it. It takes our rubbish and turns it into fertilizer. It takes our negative energy, our released energy, what no longer serves us, and transmutes it into usable energy. So if you have something to release, maybe take some intentional deep breaths. And as you sigh out of the mouth, letting it all go. Imagining just giving that excess energy, whatever it is that no longer serves us, just giving it to the ground, knowing that the earth knows what to do with it. If you are working with calling in or cultivating more balance in your life, then you can also imagine as you breathe and you release that you are planting those seeds. You're planting the seed of intention, of thoughts that will turn into actions, that will grow and grow into whatever it is that you are trying to cultivate, that you're trying to create, that you're trying to bring into your life. So using this time, this connection to earth, to start to feel that transfer of energy, feel that transition of the seasons, to feel what we need to bring balance into our lives, to bring that equilibrium, to live within the duality without getting caught up in the duality. A few more rounds of breath here. Whenever you begin to feel ready, we'll slowly start to make our way back up to our tabletop, our quadruped. I don't even remember what it was called. Pressing away any props. And as we come back to our hands and knees, feel free to take any movements that would feel good here. Maybe Some more movements through the spine. You could even lift the hips to a downward dog, maybe pedal out through the feet. You could shake out through the legs. Fantastic work. Now as you feel ready, we're going to start to set up a thread the needle. So that does mean that we will be on the knees for a little while longer. So it might be nice to bring in a blanket, fold up on the mat, or fold up the mat. Just get a little extra cushion for the knees. As you start to get set up in your tabletop, we're going to take a thread the needle, but we're going to kind of play with kind of opposites here. So we're going to extend the left leg out. I'm trying to think of the best way to demonstrate this. So we're going to extend the left leg out, planting the foot on the ground, and getting a nice stretch through that inner thigh. And then reestablish the connection to the hands. With that left leg extended, we're going to inhale to send the left arm out to the side or reach it up towards the sky. And then exhale, we're going to twist, starting to thread the left arm underneath the right, sending it over towards the right side. As you lower the head down towards the ground, the ear can come to touch. And if it doesn't, and you want to release the head, you're welcome to bring in a block or a blanket, something to just fill in that space between you and the ground. And then that right hand can stay planted where it is. You could press into the hand a little more, maybe rolling a little more onto that left shoulder. Or you could extend the arm overhead like in a child's pose, which is going to bring a little more twisting into the upper body. So the hips can stay raised, or they could start to sink back a little towards that right heel. Whatever feels good and gets you that nice stretch in the inner left leg. So we're kind of working with pulling opposites here. So we've got that left leg extended out towards the left, and then we've got the left arm reaching over towards the right. So we're bringing in some twisting, and we're lengthening through those limbs. Find your breath. And if you're working with deep belly breathing in twists, it's gonna feel different. There's gonna be a lot more sensation there. But you should still be able to take full, deep breaths. And if you can't, then that's a good sign that you've gone too far. If it feels like you have to hold the breath, or it feels forced or kind of stagnant, then just ease out of the twist a little more. You can also toe heel that left foot back if that's getting a little too intense. Because the longer we hold poses, there is a tendency for the body to release, to kind of move a little deeper. Sometimes that can be beneficial, and sometimes that can take us too far. So we do want to, again, just continue to check in with the body. Notice how it feels. Don't ignore those little messages, the little tidbits from our nervous system that just like, hey, you might be going a little too far. Because pretty soon, if you ignore those and you push it, then the body's going to yell. And that could result in injury or potential long-term harm. So keep checking in. Keep just noticing and adjust as needed. We'll take a few more rounds of breath on this side. As you start to feel ready to come out, if that right hand has traveled away, we want to place it kind of back in front of the face with the elbow bent, spreading out through the hand. We'll inhale to lengthen through the spine. On the exhale, we'll slowly start to untwist that left arm. You can send it out to the side or up towards the sky for a nice counter stretch. Ooh. And then when you're ready, releasing that left arm down, starting to draw that left leg in, and then take any movements between sides that would feel good here. Anything that you want to revisit that we've already been to, anything new that you want to explore, just tune into the body. Ask it what would feel good right now and just do that. And then whenever you feel ready, no rush, take your time, we'll start to set this up on the other side. So we'll start by extending that right leg out. We want to try to plant the foot and really press into that outer edge so that you feel that stretch from the outer foot through the ankle, kind of up into the outer shin, and then it also carries into the inner thigh so that it's nice and active. Awesome work, hands planted nice and firm. We'll bring a little more weight into that left hand so we can inhale, send that right arm out to the side or up towards the sky. And on the exhale, starting to thread the arm through, reaching the right arm over towards the left as we lower the right shoulder, cheek, and ear towards the ground. And it's okay if they don't touch, and if you want them to, fill in that space with a blanket, a pillow, a block. That left arm can stay where it is, maybe pressing a little more to roll onto that right shoulder, opening up through that right shoulder blade. Or it could go overhead like a child's pose, like in child's pose, which brings in a little more twisting through that upper back. You can also play with the position of the hips. They could be raised or they could sink back. So again, just finding what feels good on this side. We work both sides to bring balance, but we recognize that both sides aren't equal. They are not balanced. There are lots of reasons that we have asymmetries and imbalances in the body. Sometimes it's just the way we're built. Sometimes it's the way our body developed. You know, the things that we were participating in through, as our skeletal system and other things we're developing, through our adolescence and puberty. Sometimes it's just the proportions of our body. Sometimes it is injuries or stuck energy that needs to kind of be worked through. So, in this working of both sides, this continuing to check in just allows us to get to know our bodies on a deeper level, allows us to get to know, okay, what can I work with to change, to evolve, to improve, and what can I work with to accept? So just all in all, looking to build a healthy and respectful relationship with your body. A few more rounds of breath on this side. Whenever you start to feel complete with your extended twist on this side, if that left hand is traveled, we want it planted, elbow bent, close to the face. Inhale to lengthen through the spine. Exhale, slowly start to untwist. And that right arm can reach out to the side, it can reach up towards the sky, opening up. And then when you're ready, releasing that right hand down, drawing the right knee in, coming back through tabletop, and taking any movements, any stretches, anything that would feel awesome here. Awesome work. And when you start to feel ready, we'll meet up on the back. Taking your time, you're coming through a seated position, slowly making your way onto the back. We've worked to bring balance into the spine. We've done back bending and forward bending. We just did twists in the upper body, the upper back. So now we're going to twist in the lower body, or the low back. So with twists, we have one base and one moving rotational spot. So it's either the hips or the shoulders. In our in our thread the needle, the hips were our squared base and the shoulders were facilitating the twist. So this time the shoulders are going to be our squared base and the hips will facilitate the twist. So we want to keep the shoulders, on the ground if possible. Well, not even if possible, if it feels right for you. Because you can definitely raise the shoulders up off the ground if that feels better. So we're coming back kind of into our bridge pose, but without the feet so far. And then we're just simply going to drop the knees over towards the right. And just kind of notice here. Notice where you feel sensation. Notice where you feel the twist. Notice your breath. And now if you feel like you do want a little bit more, if it's okay with the left knee, you could cross the right ankle on top of the left knee and kind of use the weight of the right leg to kind of increase that twist. You could also cross the legs over, a little cross-legged twist. And if you're feeling like you want a little extra support, or if it feels like gravity is, kind of not working in your favor, you are totally welcome to bring props in. This is again where the bolster is nice, or cushions, pillows. You can kind of put it between the knees, or you could put it on the outside and let the knees drop. So as I said, we've got that square base in the shoulders. However, if it feels not good to keep the shoulders on the ground, then you're welcome to start to lift that left shoulder and kind of roll onto the right side shoulder. And you'll kind of adjust the hips to go with that so that you can still keep the shoulders squared-ish, so that we're not collapsing that left shoulder in. That we're still kind of finding that opening, even if the shoulder is lifting. So we're still working with that squared base, just maybe not as intense or as deep. Few more rounds of breath on this side. And whenever you feel ready, you'll just slowly start to raise the knees back up towards center. And then take any movements between sides. Maybe those windshield wipers would feel good here, side to side. You could stretch out the legs along the ground. You could send both legs up towards the sky. You could bring the knees in towards the chest. You could do whatever feels good here. Then when it feels right in your body, starting to set up your twist on the other side. So with the feet planted wider than hip distance, so allowing those knees to drop over towards the left. And again, you've got options to maybe cross that left ankle on top of the right knee, adding a little more weight if that feels okay. And it doesn't feel awesome in my body, so I'm not gonna do that. You could have the legs crossed and cross-legged twist, or if you want to bring in, again, that support, you could bring block, bolster, blanket, cushion in between the knees, or over to the left side to let the knees kind of fall down on that prop. And working with those squared shoulders, if it does feel better to raise the right shoulder off the ground, just adjust a little more onto that left side body and still kind of bring a little opening in that right shoulder. Settle in, connect to the breath, tune into the physical sensations in the body. Notice the thoughts that arise. Couple more rounds of breath here. And whenever you start to feel complete on this side, just gently starting to draw the knees back up towards center. You can press any props off to the side. And take any freestyle movements, anything that would feel fantastic here. And it is that time to start thinking about Shavasana, about our final relaxation. If you've got a few other movements or poses on the mind that you want to work through before settling into your final relaxation, then take as much time as you'd like to explore those, to just feel into the body, finding what feels good. And then as you feel ready, starting to find your Shavasana, your final pose.
Whatever that looks like for you. Could be on the back, on the side, on the belly. You could come to a seated meditation or sit in a chair. You can use props to support you in any way that feels right. And as you start to settle into your final relaxation, your final Shavasana, just allow the mind to kind of reflect, maybe even just settle on the idea of duality. And the knowledge that there must be duality for balance to exist. You can't have light without the dark. You can't have joy without sorrow. You can't experience happiness without experiencing pain. One can't exist without the other. So even within duality exists oneness. And that oneness is what we are looking to achieve through balance, through duality. So allow the body to settle without the mind falling asleep. Allow the breath to flow without losing the connection to it. For those of you practicing at home, if you have more time to dedicate to your Shavasana, please take it. Give yourself as much time as you can possibly spare, at least 5 minutes, upwards of 20, to allow yourself to stay in the state of simply being, of embracing the duality of you, embracing the duality that exists all around us. And knowing that that duality is proof of oneness, proof of the interconnectedness of everything. As you feel ready, just gently start to bring some movement back into the body. Slowly starting to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Starting to bring larger movements into the body. And if you're on the ground and not already there, gently start to roll onto one side of the body. Pausing just briefly in a nurturing pose. And wherever you find yourself, just take a moment to offer yourself some gratitude for carving out this time, for stepping on your mat, and for your willingness to explore, to trust, and to be. As you feel ready, gently press your way back up to a comfortable seat. And in closing, I will invite you all to bring the hands to heart center or take any other meaningful gesture with the hands. Thank you so much for sharing this time and this space with me. Thank you for allowing me into your homes and into your life. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening. I see you, I honor you, and I bow to you. Namaste.